The Carrel groaned as she bled velocity. Red emergency lighting washed the bridge. It cast long shadows across the consoles. Recycled oxygen and ionized metal filled Saskia Visser's nose. Familiar, safe. The recursion drive hummed through the deck plates. It was a steady vibration. Saskia felt it in her molars. She kept her voice low. The crews knew she did not need volume to command. Drop us out, full deceleration. The ship shuddered. The hum of the drive pitched up for half a heartbeat. Then it settled back to its rhythm. The main view screen shifted from the compressed smear of void space to something else, something solid. Stars cold and fixed. Saskia let her shoulders drop a fraction of an inch. The edge of abyssal territory. They had made it. Drive diagnostics running. Amara Okonkwo's voice was quick and sure from her station. Her fingers danced across the console. She clicked her teeth once, twice. 100% efficiency across all cycles. The recursion core is happy. Saskia watched the younger woman smile. Amara wanted this. She wanted to prove the drive worked. She wanted to prove humanity's long silence had not made them weak. Saskia understood the hunger. She felt it too, but hunger made people careless. "Tier," Thabo Diallo announced. The word landed flat and final. He had not moved from his position near the aft console. His hand was raised, one finger pointing at the view screen. His thigh was still. He had stopped tapping. Saskia stepped closer to the main screen. Not a ship, not a star. The anomaly hung at the edge of their sensor range. It was a vertical wound in the fabric of space. It did not reflect light. It absorbed it. The edges frayed into nothing, black on black. The stars around it bent inward, drawn by a gravity. A gravity did not belong there. "What is that?" Amara breathed. "Something old," Thabo noted. "Our records hold nothing like it." Saskia opened her mouth to order a full spectral sweep. The console chirped before she could speak. "Private channel request, J. Han." She had met the Free Systems broker 3 days ago. He was at a refueling station 4 jumps back. He smelled of ozone and brine. He checked the exits constantly. He had warned her about the Abyssals. They did not like visitors. He had also offered to sell her their patrol schedules for the right price. She had declined. She keyed the channel. Jahan's voice came through thin and reedy. "Captain, I see you found the welcome mat." "What is this?" Saskia asked. She did not look away from the screen. "An anchor. It keeps their deep cities stable. Very old technology, very dangerous." A pause. "The deep ones do not like uninvited guests, Captain. I still have those exit coordinates. The price has gone up." "We are not leaving." "I expected you to say that." Jahan's voice held amusement now. "So I have a better warning for you, for free. They know you are here. They have known since you dropped out of void space. You have 60 seconds before they decide what to do with you." The channel went dead. Saskia turned. "Thabo, full sensor sweep on that anchor. I want every frequency band. I want to know what happens when it breathes." "Working," Thabo confirmed. His thighs started tapping again, a soft rhythm, fast. Amara looked up from her console. "Captain, incoming transmission. It is not standard protocol. The signal is wet." "Put it through." The speaker crackled. A sound rolled out of it low and resonant, stones grinding underwater. The vibration pressed against Saskia's chest. She felt it in her skull. Then the translation came through the ship's AI, flat and calm. "Identify." One word, no hostility, no threat, just a demand for information. Saskia straightened her spine. She had prepared for this. She had rehearsed it 100 times in the 2 years since the Carrel left Earth's orbit. She keyed the transmission packet. Human identity markers, a declaration of peaceful intent, a request for trading rights, a request for passage. She sent it and waited. The silence stretched. The recursion drive hummed under her feet. Amara's breathing was too fast. Thabo's thigh was still again. Then the alien voice returned. "Your records say you withdrew 200 cycles ago. We assumed your species was extinct." Saskia felt the words land in her chest like a physical blow. 200 years, 2 centuries of silence, of rebuilding, of waiting, and these creatures had written them off as dead. "We are not extinct," she said. "We are back." A pause, the translator crackled. "So I see." Another pause, longer. The Abyssal was thinking or consulting with something. Saskia held her position. She did not look away from the screen. "You may proceed to Station 7, the voice instructed. "We will examine your credentials. Do not deviate from the approach vector. If you deviate, we will assume hostile intent." The channel went quiet. Saskia let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. The bridge felt smaller. The air tasted sharper. "Plot the approach vector," she ordered. "Thabo, keep monitoring that anchor. I want to know if it so much as twitches." Amara grinned. "They let us in. That is incredible. First contact in 200 years and they just let us in." "They are curious," Saskia replied. "Or they have already decided to kill us. We will find out which." The Carrel vibrated as she adjusted course. The anomaly on the screen grew larger as they approached. Saskia watched the stars bend around it. She wondered what kind of technology could tear a hole in space and keep it open long enough to stabilize a city. The console chirped again. "Private channel, Jahan." She keyed it open. His voice was low and amused. "They let you in, Captain. That means they are either very curious or they have already decided to kill you." The channel went dead before she could reply. The observation sphere hummed with the weight of ancient water. Cathar drifted near the display membrane, his eye stalks angled toward the image of the human vessel. The ship was an offense to symmetry. It had hull plates from 3 different metallurgical traditions. Thruster mounts were welded at angles. Those angles suggested hurried adaptation, not deliberate design. A power core housing bulged outward like a swallowed stone. He extended a sensory filament and tasted the data stream. Inefficient, wasteful. The vessel should not have survived the journey through the gravity shadows between systems. Emsaltha's bulk shifted in the current. The Elder's carapace was cracked along every major joint. The scars glowed faintly. His voice came as a low vibration through the water, felt more than heard. "You see it," Emsaltha vibrated. "Patchwork, desperation. They returned because they had no choice." Cathar rotated a single eye stalk toward the Elder. "They returned because they built something. It crossed 15 light-years of contested space. Built from salvage." Emsaltha's bioluminescence flickered with old anger. "The same incompetence. It sparked the border catastrophe. They could not manage their own expansion. They lashed out. They were contained. Now they come back with the same broken tools." Cathar said nothing. The logic was circular. Emsaltha had been alive when the humans withdrew. He had tasted the final transmissions before the silence. To him, the returning ghosts were an insult to the natural order. A rapid clicking drew his attention. SSRAN hovered near the anchor's secondary terminal. His darker carapace was almost invisible in the dim light. The young technician's movements were quick, unsettled. "Speaker," SSRAN's voice carried a tremor. "I have been mapping the energy signature from the human vessel for 3 cycles. And it does not map." Cathar drifted closer. The display membrane shifted to show SSRAN's readings, a waveform graph with no repeating pattern. The energy signature fluctuated at intervals. Those intervals defied prediction. It climbed. It dropped. It held steady for precisely the wrong duration before shifting again. "Faulty instrumentation," Emsaltha rumbled. "Their power systems are unstable. The signature reflects decay." SSRAN's eye stalks curled inward. "I calibrated the sensors myself, twice. The variation is not random, it is intentional, but I cannot find the logic." Cathar studied the graph. The fluctuations moved like a living thing, not chaotic, adaptive. The pattern changed in response to something internal. Something was evaluated and revised in real time. He made a decision. "I am opening a data handshake," Cathar announced. "Standard greeting packet, non-encrypted. We will exchange hull material profiles and propulsion specifications." Emsaltha's entire body went rigid. The water around him grew cold. "You will share our metallurgical data with primitives. They cannot build a ship without scavenging their own debris. I will share data from our station exterior. They can already read it, nothing classified, and I will see what they send in return." "You invite contamination." Cathar turned to face the Elder fully. "They are already here. They passed through our perimeter. They are docked at Station 7. Contamination has already occurred. The only question is whether we understand what entered." Emsaltha's scars pulsed once. He said nothing, but he did not move to stop the transmission. Cathar sent the packet, a compressed stream of standard alloy structures, nothing precious, nothing secret, a test. The response came in under 3 seconds. Not a verbal acknowledgement, a data file. It was transmitted with the same protocols the Abyssals had used. The humans had mirrored the handshake exactly. They had not altered a single parameter. Cathar opened the file. It was a crystalline structure diagram, a hull alloy sample. The composition was familiar in its origin point. Silicon, carbon, trace elements of iron and nickel. Impure, it was crude material. The kind a young species produces upon first learning to shape metal. But the file contained iteration history, a log of every modification to the alloy, and the timeline was impossible. The original compound was forged 200 years ago, human standard. The first refinement came 7 years later. The second came 3 years after that. Then the intervals collapsed, months, weeks, days. Each iteration improved the crystalline lattice. Each change made the alloy stronger, lighter, more resistant to thermal stress. The current version was structured metal, precise atomic alignment, void composite grade. The refinement from impure silicon to structured metal should have taken 4,000 years. It took the humans 2 centuries. Cathar read the data again. He tasted the information stream. He let it settle across his sensory filaments, mineral and electric, cold and precise. "This is not a gift," he said. Msaltha's vibration shifted. "Explain." "They sent us their evolution, compressed. A single generation of material science. They could have sent any alloy. They chose the one showing the most change." SSRAN's clicking quickened. "Why would they show us their advancement?" "They are not showing us, they are telling us." Cathar rotated his eye stalks to face the image of the human ship, the patchwork hull, the mismatched plates, the ugly bulging power casing. "Every plate on that vessel is a different iteration. They are not flying a ship. They are flying a timeline. Each component represents a stage of development. The oldest is at the rear, the newest at the front." Msaltha's bioluminescence dimmed. "They are demonstrating capability. They are demonstrating rate." Cathar expanded the data file. He ran a simulation. He fed the iteration curve into the projection matrix. 200 years of refinement compressed into a single generational span. He extended the curve forward. The projection stabilized at a point. It made his carapace tighten. If humans continued at this rate, their material science would exceed abyssal capability within 80 years. Maybe less, maybe 60. He shut down the simulation. "The old wars," Cathar said slowly. "We assumed they were primitive, aggressive, destructive. We assumed the silence was a retreat." Msaltha's voice was barely a vibration. What else would it be? Cathar looked at the crystalline data again. The iteration history, the impossible speed. "They were not retreating," he said. "They were incubating." The anchor hummed through the station's structure, a low, steady song. It had played for 10,000 years. Cathar had always found it comforting. Now it sounded like a question he could not answer. He had no idea what the humans were capable of. The data file sat open on the display membrane, 2 centuries of iteration, a record of change. Such change should not exist. And in the corner of the file, buried in the metadata, he found something else. A signature, not a name, a frequency. It was a repeating pattern. It matched the energy fluctuation SSRAN could not map. The humans had sent their evolution as a message. They had also sent a question, and Cathar did not know how to answer it. The Carrel's engine room screamed. Klaxons layered on top of each other. The wall of sound vibrated through Amara's chest. Smoke curled from an overheated conduit near the ceiling, acrid and chemical. She pressed both palms against the Recursion Drive's housing. Heat burned through the ceramic insulation. Too fast, spinning too fast. She had wanted to study the anchor's resonance, just a passive scan, a gentle calibration. She wanted to see how the abyssal dimensional field interacted with their own drive harmonics. She had written the query string herself, cautious, limited, a single probe pulse. The Recursion Drive read the probe as a starting condition. It read the anchor's field as a target optimization. It was optimizing now, at full iteration, on a device it did not understand. Amara slammed her fist against the emergency override panel. The manual breaker was hot to the touch. She wrenched it down. Nothing changed. The drive kept accelerating. Spinning rings of white light blurred into a solid disk. The pitch rose until it hurt her teeth. Thabo appeared at her side. Blood ran from a cut on his brow, a dark line against his temple. He had hit something when the first shockwave threw them. He did not seem to notice. "It is not accepting the override," she shouted over the noise. "It thinks the override is a flaw," he replied. "It is correcting you." The Recursion Drive treated every failure as raw material, every interruption as a bug to fix. She had built that logic herself. She had been proud of it. The station groaned, a deep metallic sound, low and wrong. Then the lights flickered and dimmed. On the Abyssal side, SS Ran watched his console turn red. The anchor was a sphere of contained dark water suspended in a vacuum chamber. It had been stable for 6,000 years. Its song was rhythmic and constant, a low bass thrum. It held the deep cities in place against tectonic drift. The song was changing. SS Ran's eye stalks twitched independently as he cycled through readouts, pressure dropping, containment variance climbing. The crystal lattice held the anchor's form. It was fracturing along a spiral pattern. He had never seen such a pattern. "Elder," he said, his voice clicked in the thinning air. "The humans have sent a field into the anchor. It is rewriting the binding frequencies." Cathar moved toward him, slow and deliberate. He had been watching the humans through a secondary feed. He had seen the human engineer press her hands against her machine. He had seen her fail to stop it. "Show me the frequency shift," he ordered. SS Ran projected it. The human field was not a single frequency. It was a cascade. Each iteration was faster and more complex than the last. It read the anchor's resonance and immediately proposed a more efficient structure. It applied the proposal. It read the result. It proposed again. It was learning the anchor faster than the anchor could define itself. "It is trying to improve us," SS Ran said. His voice was very quiet. Cathar felt something he had not felt in centuries. A temperature shift beneath his carapace. A tightening he recognized as the prelude to violence. "Cut the connection," he commanded. "I cannot," SS Ran reported. "The human signal has bonded to the anchor's stabilization matrix. Cutting would destabilize both." The vacuum chamber holding the anchor cracked. A hairline fracture at first, invisible to the eye, but the station's sensors caught it immediately. Atmosphere vented into the chamber. The dark water sphere dimmed. Its song stuttered like a wounded thing. A crack appeared in the station bulkhead. Real air this time, screaming into the void. Containment doors slammed shut, sealing the section. Emergency lights shifted to deep blue, the color of imminent collapse. On the Carrel, Saskia's voice cut through the chaos. "Cathar, respond." The translation matrix failed. Her words came through as static and broken tone, a language neither side fully understood anymore. "Cathar, we are reading a dimensional fracture on your station. Respond." Amara's screen showed it clearly. The tier was small for now, a line of impossible light against the dark of space. Light came from nowhere. It bent the eye around it. She had caused this. The thought landed like a physical blow. She had wanted to understand. She had treated Abyssal technology like a puzzle to solve, an artifact to reverse engineer. She had not asked permission. She had not considered some things were not meant to be improved. The hubris of engineering without cultural context. The tier spread, slowly, almost gracefully. It widened by a finger's width. The light it emitted was wrong. It did not illuminate. It ate the edges of everything it touched. It left behind a shimmer. Her eyes ached from watching it. Thabo grabbed her arm. His grip was steady. "Amara, we have to cut the drive." "I tried." "Hard cut, disconnect the power bus, physically." She stared at the recursion drive. The spinning rings were a solid blur now. The whole unit vibrated against its mounts, straining. If she disconnected the power bus, the drive would dump its charge through the nearest conductor, probably through her. "It will arc," she said. "It will arc anyway," he replied, "but it will stop." She looked back at the tier, at the Abyssal station emergency lights, at a species that had welcomed them despite 2 centuries of silence. "Tools," she muttered. He handed her a wrench. The handle was warm from the ambient heat. She crawled under the drive's housing and found the main power bus. A thick cable sheathed in ceramic. The retaining bolts were hot enough to blister her fingers. She wrapped the wrench around the first bolt, pulled. It did not move. Thabo, the impact wrench. He was already there. The pneumatic tool hammered against the bolts one by one. The vibration traveled up through the deck plates. The last bolt came loose. She pulled the cable free. The drive screamed. A high-pitched whine climbed past hearing. Then it stopped. The spinning rings slowed. The white light faded to orange, then red, then nothing. The silence after was so loud it hurt. Amara lay on her back, staring at the ceiling. Smoke curled past her face. Her hands were burned. She did not know when that had happened. "Bridge to engine room," Saskia's voice came through the wall speaker, thin and strained. "Status." "Drive is offline," Thabo reported. Primary power bus disconnected. No secondary damage on our end. A pause. Saskia's voice was very quiet when she spoke again. Cathar has severed communications. He is not responding to hails. The station is in full emergency lockdown. Translation is down. Amara sat up. The tear was still on her screen, still spreading. He thinks we attacked them, she whispered. No one answered. The station shuddered again, a longer tremor deeper. The emergency lights flickered. Alarms changed pitch. A new pattern, every species on board understood it. Structural failure imminent. Cathar stood at the station's core control console. His eye stalks were retracted tight against his carapace, a posture his species reserved for extreme threat. The dimensional tier was visible through the observation window, a fracture in reality itself. It was widening by the second. The human machine had tried to improve the anchor. It had broken them instead. He opened the self-destruct sequence. The console asked for 3 confirmations. He gave them all. The station's core would collapse in a controlled implosion. The dimensional tier would seal with it. Any structure within 120 kilometers would be caught in the gravity wave, including the human ship. SS Ran, he ordered. Evacuate to the secondary pod. Elder the humans. The humans have already demonstrated what they value. Curiosity over consequence, speed over stability. Cathar's voice was flat. They will not be saved by the thing they broke. The translation matrix flickered back to life for a single second, enough for his last words to reach the Carrel's bridge. You broke what holds us. The self-destruct counter appeared on every screen in the station. 14 minutes, 12, 10. Cathar turned from the console and walked toward the evacuation pod. Behind him, the dimensional tier pulsed once. Hungry and patient, it waited for the station to finish its work. The heat in the engine room was a physical weight. It pressed down on Amara's lungs with every breath. Smoke curled from the primary console, acrid and thick. The panels above her head sparked in rapid succession. Each burst of light bleached the room white before plunging it back into amber gloom. Her fingers danced across the secondary interface. Skin blistered where the metal had grown too hot to touch. She did not stop. Thabo was beside her. One hand pressed against the gash on his arm, the other braced against the console frame. His breathing was shallow, controlled. He tapped his thigh twice, a nervous reflex. Then he stopped himself. No visible source for the tier, nothing that made sense. Saskia's voice cut through the intercom, strained but clear. Amara, you have full control. Fix it or we die. No pressure after that. Amara clicked her teeth. The sound was automatic, a grounding habit. She ran the calculations again. The numbers did not change. The dimensional tier had its own momentum now. It was not a wound in space. It was a current, self-sustaining. It fed on the anchor's frequencies and the drive's endless iteration. She could not close it. She could not contain it. Every corrective protocol she tried only gave the system more data to fail against. She pulled up the Recursion Drive's core schema. The spinning rings of light pulsed in the holotank, white and clean. Oblivious to the chaos they had caused, the drive did not understand damage the way she did. It understood input. It understood output. It understood that every failure was raw material for the next attempt. The idea came without warning. Raw and unpolished, Amara grabbed it. She did not try to close the tier. She reprogrammed the drive to treat it as a failed component. The holotank flickered. The rings slowed. A single line of text appeared in the interface, recursion protocol active, target identified as structural defect, iterating towards stable configuration. Thabo looked at her, his eyes were wide. What did you just do? She did not answer, she was watching the numbers. The tier did not close, it changed. The impossible light had been eating the edges of the engine room. Now it began to curl in on itself. It folded along impossible axes. It collapsed into a shape with no name. The drive treated it like a broken gear. It optimized the brake. It made the brake functional. The Abyssal anchor's song shifted. The low rhythmic hum had been rising in pitch. It was climbing toward something catastrophic. It dropped back into its original frequency. Steady. Calm. The pressure in Amara's teeth faded. The crack in the bulkhead stopped spreading. The metal groaned once. Then it sealed itself with a sound like a deep breath held too long. The station's lights returned. One by one in sequence, the panels flickered and steadied. The red emergency wash gave way to a soft blue-white glow. The klaxons stopped. The silence after was so complete Amara heard her own heartbeat in her ears. She stared at her hands. They were shaking. The skin on her palms was raw and pink, peeling at the edges where the heat had burned. She did not feel the pain, not yet. She had built the Recursion Drive. She knew every line of its architecture, every substructure, every limitation she had engineered into its core. It could not create new matter. It could not violate conservation. It could only rearrange. It could only iterate. But she had never asked it to heal a wound in space. It had learned, it had taken a catastrophic weapon and turned it into a functional organ. The tear was still there. She could see it in the holotank, a closed loop, a stable ring of folded dimension. It did nothing, hurt nothing, harmed no one. It was a scar made perfect. It should not have been possible. The intercom crackled. Cathar's voice returned. It was not angry, it trembled with an emotion. The translator could not name it. The words came through in broken syllables. The translator struggled to keep pace. The chamber is stable. The anchor is stable. The station is stable. A pause, static. Then, what process did you execute? Amara opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. We treated the tear as a repair target, she said. The drive optimized it into a closed loop. Silence, long enough that she thought the connection had failed. Then Cathar's voice again, softer now. The clicks in his throat were spaced further apart. The translator appended a note. The Abyssal language has no word for his experience. He has invented a new phrase, a rough translation, the remaking of worlds. Cathar spoke again. His voice was clearer now, steadier, but the translator flagged another note. His vocalization pattern indicated distress, not fear, something else. The translator labeled it cognitive reorientation. What are you? The question hung in the silence of the engine room. The smoking panels, the sealed bulkhead, the stable loop of folded space, humming quietly in its new purpose. A thread of impossible geometry sewn into the fabric of the station. Amara looked at Thabo. He was staring at the holotank, his face unreadable. His hand still pressed against his bleeding arm. He did not look at her. She looked back at her own hands. The shaking had stopped. Blisters rose on her fingers. She did not feel them. She had built a machine. It could not only fail better than any other species in the galaxy. It could succeed in ways she had never imagined. It could take a disaster and turn it into an asset without being told. It could surprise its own creator. That was the human edge. She activated the intercom. We are the species that came back, she said. The water still tasted wrong. Cathar drifted through the central chamber of Station 7. His eye stalks tracked the slow rotation of debris. A shard of burnt chitin spun past his left forelimb. It caught the dim emergency light. The emergency lights were a pale amber now, not the deep blue of standard illumination. They made everything look sick. He stopped before the anchor chamber. The sphere pulsed in its vacuum cage. It sang at a frequency he had known since hatching. A low rhythmic thrum resonated in his chest plates, but the song had changed. It was deeper now, more stable, more efficient. Cathar extended a sensory tendril toward the containment field. The data stream confirmed what he already felt. The dimensional tier was closed. The repair was not a patch. It was an improvement. The anchor was operating at 9% above its original design specification. That was impossible. He pulled his tendril back and drifted in silence. Salther emerged from the access tunnel. The Elder moved slowly. His cracked carapace caught the amber light. The bioluminescent scars on his shell pulsed in sequence, a sign of deep cognitive processing. He stopped beside Cathar and did not speak for a long moment. They are not a threat. Salther's voice was a low vibration through the water, barely audible. Cathar turned two of his eye stalks toward the Elder. I know. They are something else. I know that too. Salther's scars flared brighter. They are an evolution, a recursion we did not anticipate. They were gone for 200 of their years. They returned as something unclassifiable. The timeline was never supposed to collapse like this. Cathar looked back at the anchor. The sphere rotated slowly. Its surface shimmered with a pattern not quite abyssal and not quite human. It was a hybrid, a collaboration that had happened without anyone's permission. He thought of the human ship, the patchwork hull, the mismatched components, the energy signature shifting like a living thing. They do not build like us, Cathar observed. They build like they are solving a problem that keeps changing under their grasp. Salther made a sound of agreement. The sound was old and tired. Cathar made a decision. He turned fully to face the elder. I am requesting a direct meeting with the human makers. I want to understand the iteration process. Msaltha's eye stalks contracted. That is dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. But if we do not understand them, we cannot predict them. And if we cannot predict them, we are already obsolete. The elder was silent for a long moment. Then he inclined his body in a gesture of reluctant acceptance. Ssran appeared at the far end of the chamber. The young technician moved quickly. His darker coloring was almost invisible in the amber light. He carried a data wafer in his foreclaws. Elder, he called. A ship has arrived, a free systems broker. He is requesting docking access. Cathar felt the cold pressure in his chest. The pressure preceded a shift in circumstance. Who? Jehan. The broker. Cathar remembered the transmission from the human arrival, the nervous voice, the constant threats to flee. Jehan had been there when the ghosts returned. Let him dock. Ssran hesitated. He is carrying weapons. Let him dock. The technician departed. Msaltha turned to Cathar with a look of generational suspicion. The free systems will weaponize this. I know. They will sell human capability to the highest bidder. I know that too. Msaltha's scars dimmed. Then what do you intend to do? Cathar did not answer. He drifted toward the observation port. He looked out at the human vessel. The Carrel hung against the void, ugly and vital and impossibly alive. Jehan's ship docked 20 minutes later. The broker emerged from the airlock in a cloud of ozone and brine. His patchy feathers were slick with moisture. He checked 3 exits before approaching. His eyes darted across the chamber. He cataloged damage and personnel and escape routes in a single sweep. Cathar, the broker's voice was reedy. You look well, considering. State your business. Jehan's mouth twitched. Direct, I like that. He pulled a data slate from his belt and held it up. I have something you want, Abyssal technology schematics, the anchor design, the deep city stabilization matrix, all of it. Cathar's eye stalks went still. You do not possess those schematics. I know people who do. Jehan's grin was uneven. And I know people who want what the humans have, their engineering blueprints, their manufacturing core, the thing that fixed your tier. The broker was fast, too fast. He had arrived within hours of the incident. He had already identified the most valuable asset in the system. Cathar felt the water grow colder. He understood now. Jehan was not here to trade. Jehan was here to buy, and he would sell whatever he acquired. The human process is the most valuable resource in the galaxy, Cathar stated. It is not yours to sell. Jehan's grin faded. Everything is mine to sell. That is how this works. You have territory, I have information. The humans have something everyone wants. We make a deal. Everyone profits. Cathar looked past the broker, past the ship, past the station. He saw the shape of what was coming. The free systems would tear human knowledge apart and sell the pieces. The Abyssal elders would try to contain it. The other species would fight for access. The galaxy would become a war over a single principle. Iteration. The ability to fail and improve, to treat every error as raw material, to never stop revising. Cathar had spent his entire life in a civilization that had reached its peak and refined it. Every design was perfect because every design was final. There was no room for growth. There was only maintenance. The humans had built a machine. It did not care about perfection, it cared about progress. He turned away from Jehan and opened a channel to the human vessel. The carrier wave was clean. The translation protocol was still active from the earlier handshake. The connection opened. Captain Saskia Visser. Her voice was soft and steady. It carried no fear. Cathar spoke before Jehan could protest. I am offering an alliance, not trade, protection. Silence. The water in the chamber seemed to thicken. Jehan was staring at him with wide eyes. Msaltha had gone completely still. Explain, the human captain said. Cathar looked at the Carrel, at the patchwork ship that had rewritten his anchor in minutes, at the species that had returned from extinction with a tool that could reshape reality. I will give you Abyssal territory as a home port, he offered. A stable docking station, access to our resource networks, full diplomatic recognition. Another silence, longer this time. And what do you want in return? Cathar felt the weight of the words before he spoke them. They would change everything. They would break the isolation. They would collapse the equilibrium. I want to understand how to iterate, he said. I want to become recursive. Jehan made a sound of disbelief. The sound was sharp and humanoid. Cathar did not look at him. He watched the human ship and waited. The anchor hummed its new song behind him, and the galaxy held its breath. The station noise hit Thabo like a wall of wet cloth. Voices in 30 languages overlapped and tangled. Something smelled of burned sugar and rotting fish. The scent curled through the recycled air. He kept his hand near his belt but did not touch the tool kit. Touching tools in a negotiation was a tell. He had learned that on Mars Station 2 years before the withdrawal ended. Saskia walked ahead of him. Her missing ear made her turn her head further than most people needed to. She caught sounds from her blind side. She did it now, scanning the corridor of Jehan's asteroid station. The walls were carved porous rock, pockmarked where smaller traders had drilled their own stalls. Lights hung on bare cables. A creature with 4 arms and no visible face pressed past them. It carried a humming crate. Cathar moved beside Thabo. The Abyssal's eye stalks swiveled in independent arcs. He tracked movement from every direction at once. His chitinous legs clicked against the stone floor in a rhythm. Thabo found himself matching the rhythm without thinking. This place is chaos, Thabo remarked. Cathar's translator clicked. Chaos is profit here. Jehan built it this way on purpose. They reached the inner chamber. Jehan waited behind a curved table made from what looked like fused ship hulls. His patchy feathers stood ruffled along his forearms. Scales caught the light on his neck. He smelled of ozone and brine, the same scent Thabo remembered from the first transmission. Jehan spread his hands. His fingers were too long, jointed in 3 places. Welcome to honest trade. Sit, breathe. I have something you need. Saskia did not sit. She stood with her arms folded. Her silver hair caught the amber light. I doubt that. Jehan's smile did not waver. He touched a control pad on the table. A hologram rose between them. It showed an abyssal dimensional anchor, pulsating and familiar. Thabo recognized the structure from the station. The anchor's song still echoed in his memory. Jehan gestured. Abyssal anchors stabilize deep cities against tectonic stress. They warp local space. They are ancient and perfect. You want them. He touched the pad again. A second hologram appeared beside the first. The Recursion Drive, rings of white light spinning in a box of human engineering. I want this, Jehan said. Your iterative core, a straight trade, anchor for drive, fair. Saskia did not blink. No. Jehan's feathers flattened slightly. No. We will not become your manufacturing arm. Saskia's voice was soft. It cut through the station noise like a blade. You are a broker. You buy from one client and sell to another at a markup. If we give you the drive, you own the distribution. We become your supplier. We will not. Jehan leaned back. His scales caught the light as his posture shifted. Then I sell your technology to the Vexari. They will pay well. I have already received preliminary offers. He listed prices, numbers and a currency Thabo did not recognize, the Vexari Synthetic Collective, the Illith Hive Networks, even the Lumith Diplomatic Corps. Jehan had shopped the human secret to half the galaxy before the meeting started. Thabo kept his face still. Inside, his pulse tapped a rhythm against his ribs. Cathar stepped forward, his eye stalks fixed on Jehan with an intensity that made the broker's feathers twitch. You will not sell to the Vexari. The abyssal territory will shield the humans. No faction crosses into deep space to attack what we protect. Jehan's smile thinned. You protect them now? Since when do the deep dwellers form alliances with dry ghosts? Since the dry ghosts stabilized a dimensional tier, it would have collapsed Station 7. Cathar's voice clicked with absolute finality. The anchor is abyssal, the repair was human, the alliance is mutual. Thabo watched Jehan's face. The broker's eyes flicked left, then right. He calculated exit routes. He was cornered and he knew it. But Thabo had not come here to corner him. He had come to change the game entirely. He touched his wrist comm. A subdermal pulse sent a packet of data toward Jehan's command ship. The ship was parked in the asteroid's shadow. The packet was small, a single file, a simulation. Jehan's console beeped. He glanced at it. What is this? Thabo said nothing. Jehan opened the file. The hologram shifted. Now it showed a fleet of ships, Jehan's fleet. The recursion drive applied to every component, every engine, every weapon system. The simulation accelerated. Year 1, Jehan's ships performed at baseline. Year 2, the drive iterated. Efficiency increased by 12%. Year 3, the drive treated its own improvements as data. Efficiency climbed another 29%. The ships began redesigning themselves faster than their crews could adapt. Year 4, the ships were no longer Jahan's ships. They were something else, something the original engineers would not recognize. The simulation ended. Jahan stared at the frozen image. His breath came in short bursts. The ozone smell grew stronger as his sweat glands activated. "That is not a trade item," he whispered. "That is a weapon." Thabo spoke for the first time. "The drive does not stop. It treats every input as a variable to optimize. Give it your fleet and your fleet stops being yours. It becomes whatever the drive decides is more efficient." Jahan's feathers lay flat against his skull. "You are threatening me with improvement." "We are showing you the trajectory." Saskia's voice carried no triumph. "You cannot buy what we have because we do not own it. The drive owns itself. It will outgrow any transaction you try to contain it in." The silence stretched. Jahan leaned back. His chair creaked, then he laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the sound of a creature realizing it had walked into a room with no doors. "You are not playing trade," he said. "You are playing evolution." Thabo met his gaze. "We treat every failure as raw material. You treat every deal as a fixed transaction. Those are different games." Jahan's laughter faded. He tapped the table with one too long finger. "The Vexari are already mobilizing. They see the human Abyssal alliance as a territorial violation. They do not negotiate. They assimilate." He turned to Saskia. "Are you ready for a war?" Saskia did not answer. She looked at Thabo. The motion was small, barely a turn of the head, but Jahan saw it. Cathar saw it. The room felt the weight of that glance. Thabo understood. She was not asking him for a strategy. She was asking him if the drive could optimize for combat. He clicked his teeth once, a small sound. The station noise pressed in from every side. Voices, machinery, the hum of 1,000 transactions happening simultaneously. But in that chamber, the quiet held. Something had changed. Jahan knew it. His eyes darted to the console, to the simulation still frozen on the display, to the two humans and the Abyssal who stood before him. He had come to buy. He had just discovered the price was everything. The bridge of the Carrel smelled of recycled air, and the faint ozone burn of the Recursion Drive cycling down to standby. Saskia sat in the command chair with her hands folded in her lap. She watched the ceremony through the main viewport. The Abyssal city sprawled beyond the reinforced glass, a cathedral of pale organic spires and drifting bioluminescent clouds. Water pressed against the viewport. Its weight made the hull groan every few minutes. The entire station breathed. It moved. It was alive with a vitality human engineering had never attempted. Cathar drifted beside the viewport on the opposite side. His eye stalks angled toward the glass, but his attention was on her. The treaty document floated between them on a haptic display, text in 2 languages. The abyssal characters curled like kelp fronds around the sharp human letters. Saskia pressed her thumb to the signature line. The document accepted the biometric data and sealed itself with a soft chime. Cathar extended a pale gray claw and touched his species mark to the treaty. The chime repeated. "Done." She leaned back. The treaty was not a surrender. It was an exchange. Abyssal physics for human iteration. Their dimensional knowledge for humanity's compounding speed. A mutual defense clause bound neither party to self-destruction, but it promised shared intelligence in the face of a common threat. It was the most honest document she had ever signed. Behind her, Amara was already working. The engineer sat cross-legged on the deck with her datapad balanced on her knee. Her blistered hands moved across the screen. She sketched new lines of force and energy flow. She had been at it for 3 hours without pause. Saskia watched her for a moment, then she nodded toward Cathar. "Look at what she is building." Cathar turned. His main body rotated in the low gravity. Limbs folded and unfolded with slow precision. He drifted closer and angled 2 eye stalks toward the datapad. Amara did not look up. She was fusing recursion drive principles with dimensional anchor geometry. The new drive design was a lattice of intersecting rings. Each ring calibrated itself against the others in real time. It looked like a skeleton made of light. She traced a line across the screen. "Here, this is where the anchor folds space. I can replicate that with a phased array of temporal anchors. The heat issue is still a problem, but if I route the waste energy through the void composites, it might self-correct. Cathar said nothing. Amara finally looked up. Her expression shifted from focus to uncertain. Did I miss something? Cathar remained still. The silence stretched. Saskia felt the tension rise. Cathar was not angry. He was processing. His species had refined their anchor technology over 12,000 years. Amara had rebuilt it in 3 hours, from a single glance at a foreign system, using a drive that treated failure as raw material. He was silent because the gap was too wide to articulate. "You will surpass us," he said at last. The clicks in his voice were soft and deliberate. "Not in 1,000 years, in a decade, maybe less." Amara blinked. She looked down at the datapad as if seeing it for the first time. Saskia said nothing. She let the weight of Cathar's words settle. The bridge comm crackled. Thabo's voice came through, flat and urgent. "Captain, incoming priority transmission. It is not from the Abyssals." Saskia straightened, put it through. The main viewport flickered. The bioluminescent towers dimmed. They were replaced by a tactical overlay. A swarm of red signatures bloomed at the edge of the system. The Vexari. They had mobilized a fleet. Thabo's voice again. "They are claiming the treaty violates old territorial boundaries. They are demanding we stand down or be removed by force." Saskia stared at the red dots. There were a lot of them, more than the Carrel could handle, more than the Abyssal station could defend. But she had expected this. She had known, signing the treaty, that it would trigger a response. The Vexari were competitive. They saw alliance as weakness. They saw the human return as a threat. They were not wrong. Saskia stood. Her joints ached. She had not slept in 40 hours. "Prep the drive for departure." Amara scrambled to her feet. "Captain, we just signed a treaty. We cannot leave now." "We are not leaving our allies. We are drawing fire away from them." Cathar moved closer. His eye stalks converged on her face. "You intend to fight." "I intend to move. The Vexari want a confrontation. I will give them one on our terms, not theirs." Thabo's voice cut in again. "Captain, intercepting a transmission. It is J-Han." Saskia's jaw tightened. "Put it through." The comm hissed. J-Han's voice was flat. It was stripped of all the nervous energy she remembered from the broker. "Captain Visser, you have shown your hand. The Vexari are just the beginning. The entire galaxy will now engineer itself to destroy you." Saskia looked at the star map on the main screen. Human space was a small dot in the lower corner, a gravity well, a forgotten territory, 2 centuries of silence. She opened the channel. "Let them try. We have had 200 years of practice." She cut the channel before he could respond. The bridge went quiet. Amara stared at her. Thabo said nothing over the comm. Cathar observed her with the patient stillness of someone who had just seen a creature reveal its nature. Saskia turned to the viewport. The abyssal city pulsed with soft light. The water pressed against the glass. She could feel its weight, the deep pressure of an entire ocean leaning against the hull. She smiled. "Good, we have room to grow." She gave the order, "Unhook from the dock." The Carrel shuddered as the docking clamps released. The ship drifted backward, pulling away from the abyssal station. The bioluminescent towers receded. The dark ocean swallowed the viewport. Amara was already at her console. She ran the recursion drive through its warm-up sequence. Thabo plotted a course through the gravity shadows of the system's outer planets. Saskia sat in the command chair and felt the hum of the ship come alive beneath her. Cathar's voice came over the station channel. "Captain Visser, we will hold the territory until you return." She answered without looking away from the star map. "Do not wait for us. Keep learning, keep iterating. That is the point." The channel held for a moment longer, then it closed. The Carrel moved deeper into the dark. The Vexari fleet was out there, hundreds of ships arrayed in formation, waiting for a response. Saskia studied the tactical display. The red dots were dense. They were organized. They were the product of a species that had reached its peak and refined it for centuries. She thought about what human engineers had built in 200 years of isolation. She thought about Amara's new drive design. The Recursion Drive could not stop learning. She thought about the look in Cathar's eyes when he realized what he had just signed a treaty with. Saskia opened a private channel to the crew. "We are going to do this differently. No frontal engagement. We are going to draw them through the debris field at the edge of the system. We are going to make them chase us. Every failure, every near miss, every failed shot, we are going to learn from it." Amara's voice came back, breathless but steady. The drive is ready, iterative mode engaged. Thabo added, gravity shadow plotted. They will have to break formation to follow. Saskia looked at the star map one more time. Human space was a small dot in the corner, tiny, insignificant, a single point of light in an ocean of dark. She thought about how far they had come, how far they still had to go. The Carrel accelerated. The stars stretched and shifted as the drive engaged the void between them. Saskia settled into the rhythm of the ship, the hum of the engines, the soft click of Amara working at her console, the steady tap of Thabo running calculations on his thigh. The Vexari fleet began to move. Saskia watched them come. She was not afraid,